This is a helmet. Just a helmet. It costs $400,000. That's enough to buy a house in most American cities. Enough to send 2 kids through Harvard. Enough to buy a Ferrari with money left over. But every F-35 pilot wears one. The US military has bought thousands, and the Pentagon insists every single dollar of that price is justified. A regular fighter pilot helmet costs about $2,000. The same shape, the same weight, the same purpose. The F-35 helmet costs 200 times more. This is the story of why a single piece of headgear became the most expensive thing a pilot wears, and why the engineers who designed it say that even at $400,000, they had to cut corners. 6 engineering constraints decide that price. Every one of them points to the same answer.
To understand why this helmet exists, you have to understand what it replaced. Every fighter jet before the F-35 had a heads-up display, a glass panel in front of the pilot projecting flight data, speed, altitude, targeting information. The pilot looked through the HUD to see the world outside, look down at instruments, look up at the HUD, look out at the enemy. 3 separate places for 3 separate things. The F-35 doesn't have an HUD. There's no glass panel. There's no projected display in the cockpit. The traditional HUD is gone. Because the entire HUD moved into the helmet, look anywhere, directly down, directly up, behind your shoulder, and the helmet's visor projects flight data, sensor data, weapon status, and threat warnings directly onto whatever you're seeing. The pilot's helmet is now the primary display system of a $100 million aircraft. That's the part that justifies the first portion of the price.
The helmet replaced the most expensive instrument in any fighter cockpit. The traditional HUD on an F-22 costs about $150,000 by itself. Moving that capability into a wearable form factor that fits a specific human head, survives ejection at 1,000 kilometers per hour, and stays calibrated within 1/4 of a millimeter is what burns through the first $200,000 of the price. And that's before we get to the cameras. Here's the framework. There are 6 engineering constraints that decide why this helmet costs $400,000 and not $40,000. Constraint 1. The augmented reality display. 2 miniature liquid crystal on silicon projectors, 1 for each eye, projecting full-color flight data onto a transparent visor, aligned to within a fraction of a millimeter. Constraint 2. The 360-degree see-through aircraft system. 6 high-definition cameras mounted on the F-35's exterior, streaming live video into the helmet, letting the pilot look straight through the airframe in any direction. Constraint 3. Built-in night vision. Infrared imaging integrated directly into the visor, replacing bulky night vision goggles. Constraint 4. Custom fit. Every helmet is built around a 3D scan of the individual pilot's head, with measurements down to the millimeter for eye placement. Constraint 5. Weapons targeting. The helmet tracks where the pilot is looking and lets them lock weapons onto targets simply by turning their head. Constraint 6. Ejection survival. The helmet has to keep the pilot alive during ejection at speeds up to 1,000 kilometers per hour, while also not breaking the pilot's neck under those forces. Every one of those constraints adds tens of thousands of dollars to the price. Strip any of them out, and the F-35 doesn't work the way it was designed. Look at the F-35's fuselage closely, and you'll see 6 small black domes. Each one is a high-definition camera pointing in a different direction. Together, they cover every angle around the aircraft: up, down, left, right, forward, behind. That system is called the Distributed Aperture System, DAS. Its job is to feed live video from all 6 cameras into a computer, fuse the feeds into one continuous spherical view, and stream that fused image into the pilot's helmet visor. What the pilot sees through the helmet is the world outside the aircraft, as if the aircraft itself doesn't exist. Look down at the floor of the cockpit, and instead of seeing carpet and instruments, you see the ground below the aircraft. Look behind your shoulder, and you see what's behind the tail.
the metal of the airframe becomes transparent. This is not science fiction. This is operational technology that's been flying since 2015. But making it work consistently in all light conditions with low enough latency that the pilot doesn't get motion sick from a delay between turning their head and seeing the image update, that's a software and hardware problem that took Collins Aerospace 10 years to solve. The cameras themselves cost about $30,000 each, and there are 6 of them on every F-35. The computer processing the video fusion costs another $50,000. The optical projection inside the helmet that displays the fused image without distortion adds another $40,000. Add it up. Just the see-through system is over $120,000 per helmet. Here's the constraint most people don't expect: the fit. You can't share an F-35 helmet. You can't pass it to another pilot. You can't grab one off a shelf in a hangar and put it on. Every helmet is built around a single human head, yours. The fitting process takes 2 days. Day 1, laser scanning. The pilot sits in a 3D scanning rig that maps their head from every angle, generating a model accurate to within tenths of a millimeter. Day 2, measurement. Technicians measure the exact distance between the pilot's pupils, the exact distance from eyes to where the visor will sit, the shape of the cheekbones, jaw, and skull base. These numbers feed into a CNC machine that cuts a custom liner, the foam padding inside the helmet. The liner is shaped to fit only that one head, and to position the visor so the augmented reality projection lines up perfectly with the pilot's eyes. If the projection is off by more than 1/4 of a millimeter, the pilot sees double images. Not blurry, not slightly off. Actual double vision, which causes headaches, nausea, and disorientation in flight. At Mach 1.6, that's not an inconvenience, that's a crash. So every helmet is hand-built for one pilot. When that pilot leaves the program or changes assignment, the helmet is destroyed or stored. It cannot be reused. Look at where the $400,000 actually goes, and the price stops being absurd. It becomes inevitable. Roughly $100,000 goes to the augmented reality projection system, 2 LCOS projectors, alignment optics, microdisplays, and the calibration hardware that keeps everything aligned within a fraction of a millimeter through 9G maneuvers. Roughly $80,000 goes to the see-through aircraft system, 6 cameras, sensor fusion computer, low-latency video pipeline, and the visor optics that display the fused image without distortion. Roughly $70,000 goes to weapons targeting, the head tracking system that knows exactly where the pilot is looking at all times, eye tracking sensors, and the integration with the F-35's weapons computer. Roughly $60,000 goes to ejection survival engineering, carbon fiber and Kevlar construction, weight balancing for ejection forces, and the material science that keeps the helmet attached to the pilot during ejection but breaks away if it would break the neck. Roughly $50,000 goes to night vision, infrared sensors integrated into the visor, image processing, and the optics that overlay infrared images on top of normal vision. Roughly $40,000 goes to the custom fit and assembly, the 3D scan, the CNC cut liner, the hand assembly by a specialist technician. $400,000. 6 systems, 1 helmet, no corners cut. Here's where the math gets interesting. An F-35 cost about $100 million. The helmet costs $400,000. That's 0.4% of the aircraft's price, less than 0.5%. But the helmet is the single piece of equipment that defines what makes the F-35 a 5th-generation fighter. Without it, the aircraft is just a stealthy plane with sensors. With it, the pilot has situational awareness that no 4th-generation fighter can match. Russian Su-57 pilots and Chinese J-20 pilots don't have anything close to it. They have helmet-mounted displays. They don't have see-through aircraft. They don't have integrated night vision in the visor. They don't have custom fit at this level. In a real engagement between an F-35 and a Su-57, the F-35 pilot can see threats coming from any direction without moving the aircraft. The Su-57 pilot has to physically maneuver to look around. That's the difference between seeing your enemy first and seeing them last. So the $400,000 helmet isn't an extravagance.
it's the cheapest part of the F-35's combat advantage. Strip the helmet out and you've got a $100 million stealth aircraft fighting like a $30 million F-16. Keep the helmet and you've got a fifth-generation fighter that no enemy aircraft can match.
Put the 6 constraints together. Augmented reality says $400,000. See-through aircraft says $400,000. Night vision says $400,000. Custom fit says $400,000. Weapons targeting says $400,000. Ejection survival says $400,000. Every constraint converges on the same number, not because the engineers picked it, because every other number doesn't pay for the capabilities the aircraft needs. A $40,000 helmet would mean cutting the see-through system. The pilot couldn't see through the airframe. A $4 million helmet would mean adding capabilities the F-35 mission doesn't need. The cost-benefit curve breaks. $400,000 is where 6 engineering constraints meet at one point. Not because the engineers were generous, because every other answer makes the F-35 worse at the only job it has.
A standard fighter helmet costs $2,000. The F-35 helmet costs $400,000. The difference is 200 times. But the F-35 itself costs $100 million. The helmet is 0.4% of the aircraft. The cheapest part of the whole platform, and it's the single piece of equipment that makes the world's most expensive fighter actually worth what it costs. Without the helmet, the F-35 is just a plane. With the helmet, the pilot sees through the aircraft, targets weapons with a glance, flies blind through night without goggles, and walks away from ejections that would kill anyone in a $2,000 helmet. 6 constraints, 1 helmet, $400,000. Cheapest deal the Pentagon ever made.